Hi, all Ventrick here, bringing you episode 2 of Build Your Own Bukkit server. In episode 1, we kind of went over the initial configuration, sizing your server, and your different options for hosting. Today we're just going to go through actually the initial configuration of the server, what you need to know to get your server ready to go online before we start installing plugins, which we'll look at next episode. So here we go. As you remember before, this is our YT Bukkit server, and if I launch that server, just launch it by going to my run.bat. It's going to bring up the server here. And the server is now up. So if I log into this server now, multiplayer, we'll see it sitting here. Ventrick's Minecraft server. I'm just going to log in. Of course, going to be the only one in there. I'm just going to say hi, and then I'm going to log out. So as you can see, as I do that up here, you can see on the console that Wiztrick is logged in, and then you can see I said hi, and then I lost connection. So basically this is the server log telling what you can see on the console. Now if I stop this, it's telling me it's modified by another program. This is the server log I have opened over here. I say yes. So I look at my server log now, and I can see everything that just happened. It saw Wiztrick log in, saw Wiztrick say hi, saw Wiztrick lost connection. Now, what this is good for is if you have griefers on your server, or if you get into a he says, she says at some point where someone says, this person said this to me, and the person says they didn't, you can actually go back, go through the logs, and you can see conversations people had. You can see commands people try to run, so you can parse the log, and you can see people who are trying to go into creative and couldn't, or maybe if they're running some other kind of hacking programs, you can see them trying to run the commands for that. So that's a good thing with the server log, is to just go back and see what's happening with your server. You can also see any errors. You're obviously not going to be constantly staring at the console, but what you can do is go back, open this up in Notepad, or in my case Notepad++, and you can search for errors and whatnot and try to debug and see what's going on with your server when you're not around. So that's the server log. Next file we're going to look at is the bukkit.yml. This is pretty much, you're not going to do much with this file. Even it says here, this is the main config file for Bukkit. As you can see, there's not actually much here without any plugins. Basically, most of your config happens with your plugins. This is just main config for the server, and most of it's stuff you're not going to touch. This is whether you're going to allow the end world, whether you're going to warn when the server overloads. Sometimes in your message you'll see the server could not keep up. So that's just that message, whether you want to see that or not. Where your permissions file is, where your update folder is. You don't have to worry about this stuff. Shutdown message. So if you shut down the server and players are online and you haven't done a kick all, this message will be whatever they see. So it just says server closed. You can change that to whatever you want. The server will be down for maintenance sort of things. Just setting spawn limits. I never really touched this. And then where your database is. So basically this stuff, don't touch it unless you absolutely have to. And just leave it be. The next file we're going to look at, again, these are all in here. The bukkit.yml is the server properties. And what this is for the generator settings, this is where you can set a seed for the world. You can, if you don't set anything, it'll be a random seed. If you set something there, you're gonna set the seed for the world. Again, whether you allow the nether world, the name of your default world, as you can see over here, by default it's world. Just leave it alone. You don't really need to change that. But if you want to change it to Mike, you can change it to Mike. You change it there, you change it here, and you're good. Allow flight, default is false. That means players by default can't fly. Can't use the /fly command. So if you don't want them flying, leave it that way. Server port. This is kind of important. If you're running your own server, you can pretty much, on your own system, you can pretty much set that port to whatever you want. as long as you do the proper port triggering, port forwarding on your router. We may get into that in another video on how to do that. So you can set that what you want. If you're using a hosting company like Game to Game or Multi Minecraft, they will assign a server port to you. They will say your server port is 879360 or whatever. So that's what you will put there. When they assign a server port, that's where you're going to put it. The level type is default. Leave that alone. Server IP again. This is where you're going to put the IP address of your computer, and you want your friends to connect from their computers. Put your IP address. This will be your router IP address that you get from your cable company or your DSL company, or if you're leasing a server off somebody else, they'll provide you with the server IP address. Make sure you enter that there. Max build height. This is how many blocks high from bedrock to sky you allow users to build. 256 is pretty much the default, and it's pretty much everyone keeps it at the default, so I would just leave it there. Whether NPCs spawn, just leave the default to true. Whether whitelist, false by default. That means anybody, if your server's online, anybody can connect. So if you just want your friends to connect, you enable the whitelist, so you would say true here, and then over here in the whitelist whitelist.txt file, you would just go in and you would type in their Minecraft names. Get them to give your Minecraft names, type them in there, and then only people who are in that whitelist can log into your server. Where was it? Spawn animals. If you want animals to spawn, you're going to want them. Keep it to true. Hardcore. You probably don't want hardcore on your multiplayer server. They die, they got to start over again. So keep that to false. If you do want them to have to restart every time they die, you can set it to true. Don't really touch the texture pack. Online mode true. That's for because it's a network server. It's going to be a network game. PvP, whether you want your players to be able to kill each other in game. If it's true, they can. If it's false, they can't. Difficulty, I leave that the default one. If you want to make it harder, you can change it. Game mode 0, you have 3 options here. Game mode 0, 1, and 2. 0 means it is a survival world. 1 means it's a creative world. 2 means it's an adventure world. Leave that at 0. You probably want your default world to be a survival world. We can walk through later in the series using Multiverse Core plugin to create another world, and you can make that a creative world if you want. Here are the max players. We talked about the sizing in the first game. How many players do you want on your server at the max? 20 is the default. You can set it to 10. You can set it to 5. You can set it to 100. Whether you want monsters to spawn, true is the default. Leave it that way. Of course, you want your monsters. View distance. That's how far players can see in the game, how much gets preloaded. So this is, if you shrink that, it'll be kind of like they have more fog. So even if you put that down to 1 or 2, then even if they have their client settings set on far, they're not going to see far. So leave the default at 10 unless you are having lag issues. Then you can try dropping it down. Or if you want them to be able to see for miles and miles, you can boost it up. Generate structures, true. This is basically, will it create NPC villages? Will it create things like that? Leave that to true. Spawn protection, don't really know what that does. I just leave it to default. MOTD, this is what they see when they go to log on to your server. So the server's not running right now, so let's start it back up again. And I go into multiplayer here, so I'll see a Minecraft server. Now if I were to stop this, I just cancel here, and I change this to, I have the files actually open for editing while I'm launching this. It doesn't really like that. But let's get back into server properties. I change my MOTD to Wiztrick's world, and then I save this, and I relaunch my server, and I go to multiplayer. Now I see Ventrick's world, Wiztrick's world. You can do colors and whatnot in there. I'll get into that probably in a later video, how you can set colors. Like if you see for Bobville, blah, 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 1978, 1.4.6, I put that in there, and I set the colors for that. And that's pretty simple to do. It's just by using the Minecraft color codes in this MOTD over here. Other files in here that we may want to look at. So let me stop the server. I don't really need it running right now. So banned IPs. This is where if you ban a player in game, you do /ban IP. Someone's like really pissing you off. You have two options. You can /ban player name, and what that'll do is that'll ban that player name no matter where they connect from. So, but that doesn't stop them. They have multiple accounts. They can just log into another account and connect back to your server if you're not whitelisted, or get whitelisted, get in and do the same stuff. So this is where banned IPs comes into effect. You can do a ban IP on a player name, and then no Minecraft accounts can log in from that IP. So they might even have 1,000 accounts. If they only have one IP, they can't connect. So sometimes you want to ban, if you really want to ban someone, you ban their player name and you ban their IP. Because you just ban the IP, then they can log in from somewhere else. So those are your two: banned IP, banned players. Ops.txt, this is where you list your server operators. I don't have any in there right now, but if you want someone to be an admin basically without setting all the permissions, add them to ops. They're a server op, they're an admin by default, just right there. Permissions.yml is your permissions file. We're going to leave that alone. Right now, it's keep coming up. It's empty here. Leave it empty. We're going to use permissions X to or PEX to do your permissions on the server. Your run file, your server.log, we kind of went over that earlier. Server properties went through in the whitelist. .text, again, it's just a blank file, and you can just go in and then you can add people who you want to be whitelisted on the server. And then those would be the only people who are allowed to log in if you have whitelist true. You can pre-populate with a bunch of people. You can have whitelist false. And then if you want to just lock it down to a min, say you want it wide open, no whitelist. But then certain days you only want your mods and admins to log in. You can have the whitelist set up with all their names. Go in, set your whitelist to true, and then they'll be the only ones who can log in. So that's about it for this video. We pretty much covered what all the files are in your folder, and what configurations you should set, what you should touch, what you shouldn't touch. I hope this was helpful, and if you like, give me a like. If you really like it, give me a favorite. Until next time, I'll talk to you later. Bye.